Where we left off yesterday. Yesterday we went through the Igros Moshe, if you remember. Yes, we went through the opinion of Rav Moshe. I also gave you the context with it was the Shaila from Reb Shimon Schwab for his Kehillah in 1960 and all the things that went with it. Today we're going to first go a little bit further back. Okay, a little bit further back. Not hugely, but we're going to look at two of the Gedolei HaAchronim who discuss this issue directly. And on your new source sheet, it is source 2 and 3 respectively, although really, I suppose chronologically, I should have done it the other way around, the Chochmah Sodom. Let's do the Chochmah Sodom first. Number 3. Says the Chochmah Sodom, Gvinas Akum, Osu Chachomim, mipnei shemamidin oisom be'oir kevas shchitosam shehi nevela va'afilu he'emidu ba'asovim. Even if this particular cheese was created with a mamid that was organic, it wasn't animal at all. Oi, now this is the key, this is what you underline or highlight. Oi shena'asu mimela, or this cheese was made mimela, meaning, well, what does that mean? That can't mean hard cheese, because you cannot create hard cheese, mimela. It's not doable. It needs rennet. The only thing you can create mimela is, of course, soft cheese. What we call acid set cheese, or cottage cheese, and all the lemineihem. In the modern poskim, you will often find it referred to as gevina levana, by the way. Yes, to differentiate it from tzahuba or whatever, as they use it in Ivrit. In other words, the sort of cheese that you just left it out, you left milk out in the sun, and it became cheese. So he's very clearly talking about which type of cheese?
Yeah, cottage cheese.
Soft cheese. Osur. He says it's osur delay plug rabbanon. Zog the chochmah sodom. So this is very important maramokah. You need to be aware of this. Pashtus pshat in the chochmah sodom is soft cheese. That soft cheese was included in, because it has the din, because it is called gevina, even though it is different b'mare u'b'ta'am, but it is called gevina, and therefore it's included in the loy plug. The chochmah sodom seems to be extremely clear that it's osa. And you are frowning away. What is your problem?
First of all, who's the chochmah sodom?
Oh, now that's a problem.
Sorry for
No problem.
But I better be honest about it.
No, absolutely.
He's the Chayyei.
Okay, the Chayyei Odom and the Chochmah Sodom of Avram Danzig was the posek in Vilna.
Okay, that answers one question.
Okay, going back 200 years. I mean, the Chayyei Odom, the Chochmah Sodom.
He wasn't the primary posek in Switzerland.
I don't understand what he said here.
Why? It's very, das ist sehr verständlich.
So, because he's saying the reason it's forbidden is because of the oil kivas nevela.
Yeah.
Because in nevela, but therefore also if it's organic, it's forbidden.
Yeah. No, that's not a chiddush. Slow down. Maybe I didn't make myself clear. Let me be very clear. That's already in the Gedolei HaPoskim. It's very clear that Gevinas Akum, Chazal forbade Gevinas Akum. Discussion as to what the primary reason was, but there's no shaila. Once something is Gevinas Akum, or once something it comes under the Gzeira of Gevina, then even if in other words, if the normal and the primary method of creating this Gevina is via the rennet, and you happen to make it through another method, it remains osa. That is uncontroversial. That you should know already from our shiurim from the last day or two. There's no shay. That's not a chiddush. The chiddush is he takes it further. That's not a chiddush. His chiddush is these words: Oishanasu mimela. That even if it happened with no involvement at all of a human being, it happened by itself. Now, that lechura can only refer to soft cheese, what we're calling cottage cheese, and therefore you see the Chochmah Sodom is a very serious force in halacha, and he says le plug. Very interesting. Now,
No,
what I find interesting, yes.
So you say that it's a chiddush. So we're jumping a step ahead for me. So why is that a chiddush? We already established that there is no earlier sources that establish that principle.
Which principle?
That afilu, if it's memele, it's also because of loy pluk.
No. Where have we seen that?
Now that's what the Chachmas Adam say.
Yeah.
And
Well,
you
I mean,
said that that's a chiddush. So I'm asking, is that a chiddush or is that already something that was established before?
it would appear to be a chiddush. We're going to see shortly in the Shevet HaLevi whether we can compare it to potentially another machlokas, the Pri Chodesh, the Radvaz. We'll come to that in a minute. But I ask you, hitherto, up until this point, have we come across anybody who has? Well, we haven't really seen very much. That's the truth. We just started on the Sugya.
Does the Torah say something about it?
But put it this way, what we saw yesterday.
And there are many in between, like I don't know. Did you say something about?
No, it's not. No. I mean, I've looked through. I've researched it, and these are the ones that come up. I mean, we're not done yet. We will see the Aruch HaShulchan, the Sridei Eish, and the Shevet HaLevi, and the Igros Moshe. Those are the Maramakomas on the topic, and I'll show you some more modern ones. Beseda. I mentioned yesterday about the Star K, the OU. I've located and printed out the OU policy and the Torah behind it. We'll get to it, but we've got to. So it is a bit of a chiddush. To say loy plug, Reb Moshe says not like this. Reb Moshe says not like the Chachmas Adam. Lepele be'enai, if I may, unless I missed it, Reb Moshe doesn't quote this Chachmas Adam. And I find that quite interesting, to be honest. Reb Moshe for sure knew it, there's no question about it. He just brushes it misvara, I think, if I may say, misvara, Reb Moshe is right. We're talking about something, bishleima, let's make this again, maybe I didn't make it clear. Bishleima, regular cheese, where the standard method of production to this day is still to use rennet. So then you can say a low plug, if you happen to produce it in a different way, using an organic mamid, okay, you can hear low plug, it's gvina. This is the cheftza that Chazal forbade. You've managed to find a kosher way of making it, fine. But that would be, I can hear that. But to come along and say something that is, as Rav Moshe put it, it's not shava b'mara, it's not shava b'tam. It tastes different, it feels different. It isn't made al yedei rennet. That's not the way it's made. It's made with vinegar, acid, pH, lowering the pH, lemon, Mehecha tesa, that it would be included in the original gzeira of Gevinas Hakum.
Could kutach be comparable to something like that? That would be like soft cheese because it's some milchig dish that is fermented, some maybe like a yogurt type of thing.
It's Gvina. We're going to get to kutach. We'll get to kutach. We've got a lot to do, my friends. We've got yogurt, sour cheese, shamenet, creme fraiche. There's a lot to do. We're just touching on one aspect of it, and we will get to it. Yes. Let's go weiter. That's the Chachmas Adam. Very important. Now let's go back one to the Aruch HaShulchan. Yeah? Aruch HaShulchan number 2. Zog the Aruch HaShulchan. Omnom ledina ein nafke min klal. Says the Aruch HaShulchan. Lahalocha makes no difference. Even if you create the cheese via a method of, you use an organic way of doing it, even if it's b'dava heter, nevertheless it's also k'mishkos or Rambam. Shekein hoyru miktsas geoinim. Some of the geoinim said, mipnei chashash hamodu b'dvar isur, va'afilu im bechol hamedina. Sorry. Getting old, my reading glasses, it's a strain. Lesebrille. Does that one? Yeah?
Yeah, I dreamed last night that I was wearing reading glasses.
Sounds like a nightmare to me. Don't get old. Al tashlichenu le'ezikna. That's better. Okay, weiter. Says Aruch HaShulchan, Va'afilu im bechol hamedina ma'amidin bidvar heter. Even if everywhere in this Medina, the way they create the cheese is bidvar heter, Gam kein osur, it'll still be osur. Mipnei shegvina osruha b'minyan. There we have it again. Chazal forbade gvina. As I said to you yesterday, it's a dover shebeminyan. V'chol dover shebeminyan. ne'esar la'olam afilu k'shabbat al-atam. Once the gezerah falls under the category of davar shebeminyan, then even if the specific reason changes, the metzius changes, but that's the gezerah remains. And you need those that are greater in both wisdom and number. Than the original ones who created the Issa, if they want to be materit. Very interesting comment. It is an impossible fact. By the way, it's a hashkafic throwaway line. You read the Sadoiros, it is the Aruch HaShulchan dismisses it en passant. He says, EF Shaliyos. That's it. Unmöglich. Number. By the way, it's a whole shaila. What does number mean? Does it mean number of talmidim? Does it mean there's a shach in Yeridea? There's a chazanish? It's a whole separate fascinating sugya. What does it mean? You need a million.
Because it's funny, because the line before was saying Kashrus because forbidden by minyan. So you need people who are greater in wisdom and minyan.
Yeah, that's what it means. Davar shebeminyan means something that was voted on and given as a specific type of gezerah, and you need a minyan acher. You need those that are g'dolim mimenu b'chochma u'b'minyan to be materit.
Nothing to do with davar shebeminyan.
No. Don't get me confused with eggs. It has nothing to do with eggs or things that are sold. You mentioned that yesterday.
Yeah. So this is why we say minyan, because they need to be g'dolim and the minyan.
B'chochma u'b'minyan. The question is, what does minyan mean? Does it mean minyan talmidim? There's Pesach Shuv on this. There's a lot of raid on that, but not for now. But by the way, he throws in, he says, "V'zeh EF Shaliyos." Das kann nicht sein, das ist unmöglich. Zeh EF Shaliyos. U'b'zeh gevina chamor mechalav. And in this nekuda, cheese is stricter than milk. The chalav ha'isser hu mishum chalav tameh. With chalav, the way the gezerah of chalav akum was structured, it was a straightforward gezerah. We are concerned that you will put in the milk of a camel, of a behemoth, she'enoi tameh, and that was it. Chazal were worried. Mishum chalav tameh, v'loi nigzera b'minyan le'isur stoma. Chazal did not create. When they forbade chalav akum, they didn't forbid it as a davar shebeminyan. It was a regular gezerah. We're worried of chalav tameh, and therefore, if you can ensure there is no chalav tameh, it's fine. It's not a blanket issa. But gvina was different. Aval gvinos ne'esru b'minyan. It's clear in Chazal that gvinos it was ne'esar b'minyan. Ve'enoi moyel shum dova. No, it's kind of ausrede. There's no way you can get out of it. Ken kosu akadmonim ulefize Rav Magid ulefize ledidon. Hagam shema'amidim oisa ba'oir keva she'nisyabesh ke'etz tahava ka'afra ba'alma. Even though nowadays the rennet that we use has been dried out to such a point that it is halachically no longer considered basar. It is in virtually in ashes form. It's earth. It's nothing. Ve'ein ba isur klal, and it has no issa at all. By the way, in brackets, in parentheses, we're not going to do this now, but this is the basis for the whole sugya of gelatin, which we need at some point we can talk about, which is really interesting. Okay, not for now, but this is kind of where it comes in. So the rennet they use today, he says, this is his proof, if you like, or one way of showing that gvina is different. Even if you can be absolutely sure that the methods of production that they use today involves rennet, which is halachically not problematic at all, unlike the situation when Chazal made the gezerah. Then they used fresh, it still had a din of basar, etc. No, what they use today is yovesh, it's absolutely dried out, it's offer ba'alma, it's not osur. He's indicating you could probably even eat it if you wanted to. Doesn't matter, it remains also because it's davar shebeminyan. And here, finally, is the bit that we read all of this column for. Gvina pshuta shelonu. Gvina pshuta shelonu. Our simple cheese. She'ein ba ha'amada klal. There is no ha'amada involved in the production of this gevina. Mikol makoim ha'isur bimkoimoi oimed mita'am sheniz ba'er. Nevertheless, the gzeira, it's gvina, and thus it is also, and I don't care about the fact that this was never produced, seemingly, gvina pshuta shalano, he calls it. What do you think he refers to? It's a gvina pshuta that has no ha'amoda klal. He can only be referring to one thing: soft cheese.
Yeah.
There's no ha'amoda, and nevertheless, it's also. So we have to overcome. We now have a bit of a hurdle to overcome. We have a chochmas adam and an aruch hashulchan. So it's not so pashut. Now the svara. So Rav Moshe is going against the aruch hashulchan. Misvara. He's going against the aruch hashulchan. He's going against the chochmas adam. I'm just put absolutely, of course, but I'm just putting it into some sort of context. Okay. Let us.
That he wouldn't even
he doesn't. Yes, I did. I must admit, unless.
Also like very big.
Of course.
And especially that it's not like Rav Feinstein was like a sporty pastor.
No, of course, absolutely.
That doesn't have to
Yes.
take that too much into account.
I agree with you. I find it significant and noteworthy and interesting that Rav Moshe doesn't, unless I did it too quickly and then the bits that I missed out, I don't think so, that he doesn't mention Aruch HaShulchan or the Chochmas Adam, but I bring them to your attention. Weiter, now we go to the Sridei Eish. Source 1. Sridei Eish, Chelik Aleph Siman Chof, al dva hagvino hanikra Weisskäse. Right, soft cheese. Im borur, says the Sridei Eish, Im borur shehagvino nasis beloi ha'amoda klal. If you are sure, if you can be certain that this cheese was made beloi ha'amoda klal, without any ha'amoda, v'hakol nase me'elov, self-set, it just went sour itself, oz yesh lahatir ba'artzeinu bizman hazeh she'ein bosser kosher motzoi klal machmas gzeiras malchus harisha. Here we get, now I'd have to look at the date of this tshuva. I should have looked at it. But this goes hand in hand with a time, clearly, where in Germany there was no kosher meat to hand. And here, by the way, let me just throw in parentheses, there was a famous machlokes. The Sridei Eish was very, very outspoken in wanting to allow certain leniencies in shchita in times of when there was under pressure. When they were under pressure, and he argued with other gedolim at the time, and there's a Chaim Ozer, and again, not for now, but you clearly get the context. Mm-hmm. We're talking in a situation, we don't have bossa kosher, mitzad machmas gzeiras hamalchus harisha, ve'ein efsharus liknois gevino shel Yisrael. There is no alternative to buy kosher cheese. Then he is prepared to be materit. But, however, so he gives you another geder. But if the ha'amada is done via an agent, even if it's organic, then you can only be materit for those that are sick. Interesting thing he throws in at the end. The elderly, the weak, and the poor are included in cholim. But one thing, what do you see? What do you see from him? So there's two things. First of all, you see clearly he's talking about cottage cheese. He's talking about soft cheese.
Yeah, but without anything.
Yeah, obviously.
I mean, it's clear that it's all shas adchak.
It's clear that it's shas adchak. To me, it's pretty straightforward that he, in principle, he doesn't say like Reb Moshe, the svara, that really it's okay. No, he's really only relying on it very clearly in very difficult, in the shas adchak, in a dieved, difficult circumstances. And that's why there's no ha'amoda at all. You're borrowed that there's no ha'amoda. So he will be makel for healthy people. There's two things he's saying here, let's be clear. For healthy people, he'll be makel in a shas adchak when you can't get kosher cheese. You can't get kosher meat, thus you can't get kosher cheese, right? Because normally you would need, now what's that got to do with it? I don't understand. So there's no kosher meat. By the way, what does that mean?
No, that means we don't have kosher rennet to make hard cheese.
But he's not talking about hard, he's talking about Gvina Levana. Why does he say, you hear my question, he's saying,
to eat.
pardon?
There's less of Gil. You can make your Shabbos meal.
Oh.
No, but it's logical. If we don't have kosher Gouda and hard cheese, whatever, okay? Because we don't have kosher meat, then we can't have cheese. But people still want to have cheese or meat with protein.
That's probably
so. Then
very good.
What is the way out of
Eli,
that situation?
sehr good. Sehr
We
good.
want the white cheese. Now is the question: can we get the white cheese? He says yes, but this time because you can't get the regular cheese.
Therefore, you can get the white cheese
that's the only way potentially
for
out.
healthy people.
Right.
And if it there was a ha'amoda with something else, even though the ha'amoda was itself kosher, that is only prepared to be makel for chaylim, for the elderly, for the poor. One thing you see, if I were to ask you, the Sridei Eish, do you think his sympathies lie more with Reb Moshe or more with the Aruch HaShulchan and the Chachmas Sodom? Or clearly with the Aruch HaShulchan and the Chachmas Sodom. Clearly he lies with them. If it wasn't for the Shas Adchak, I think it's very strongly mashma, he would be machmir. Okay, so I'm afraid not much joy this morning. 3 Maramakomas, and I think okay. Look, what?
A lot of information.
That's the point. Yeah, let's keep going. We're not done. So we've got the Aruch HaShulchan, we've got the Chachmas Sodom, we've got the Sridei Eish. By the way, I want to read out a footnote here from this is a footnote from somebody who actually a good friend of mine, Rabbi Kiva Osher Padva Shlita, who is the son of Rabbi Yossel Padva in London, the brother of the Padva you might know from Amsterdam, Zurich, Antwerp, wherever he is now. And he's a very, if I'm not mistaken, he's the director of Kashrus supervision for the KLBD. A good guy, very, 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 very knowledgeable. He's been in Kashrus pretty much for. I remember he came to visit me in Gibraltar. He was doing some Kashrus in Spain, so you're going back 25, easily close to 30 years. 30 years at least. He told me some fascinating stories. He was on the tuna ships out in the Philippine seas and all that, and how it all goes. Fascinating. Anyway, so he writes here. I found a note here in the parak in this book on the sofa on cottage cheese, and he writes as follows. I'll read and translate. Danti lifnei kama shonim emagon Reb Chanoi Cherentroi Shlita. Does that sound now? So Rabbi Kiva Osher Padva writes. He says that I discussed in front of Dain Erentroi al shehu matir gvina raka kedugmas cottage she'ein bo maaseh gibun. Dain Erentroi was makel on cottage cheese that doesn't have a maaseh gibun. ואחרי שהסברתי לו את הסיבה שמוסיפים לגבינות רקות כאלו לפעמים טיפה של רנט, after I explained to him, says Rabbi Kiva Osher Padva, after I explained to Dain Erentroi the reason that they put a little bit of rennet into the soft cheese, כדי שיוכל להפריד קצת יוסף בקלוס את המי גבינה, so that the separation would happen easier, הוא הכריע שעדיין לא נחשב בכך מעשה גיבון ומותרים, כי אינן דוימוס לאויסן גבינוס שנאסרו. Dain Erentroi still maintained his opinion that the addition of a small amount of rennet, which makes the separation of the curds and the whey easier, is not enough to be considered a ma'amid, and therefore he maintains his position that soft cheese, acid-set cheese, remains mutter. I thought that was an interesting footnote, which I want to share with you.
Sounds very much like the sections of Feinstein, right?
Correct.
Meaning that even this drop is not significant,
correct,
because it doesn't fall under the gezerah, and it's just a drop sometimes.
That is correct.
Right?
Yeah. We are going to, however, we're going to be learning, maybe not today, but we will be learning about IMCU, International Milk Clotting Units, which is the unit they use for IMCU, not YMCA. No.
Clotting unit.
International Milk Clotting Units. But there's different strengths in the US and the EU, and how many they put in. That's right. How many they put? There's also a single strength rennet, double strength rennet, and how many milliliters or how many IMCU they put into the different cheese, and we'll come to that a little bit later. But we still have a bit of work to be done, and that is our next thing to see is the Shevet HaLevi. So Rav Wosner, it's a bit long, but we're going to, if you follow with me, we'll try and make light work of it. Okay? Source 4 here. Shevet HaLevi Chelik Daled Siman Pei Vav. Okay? So, he writes a tshuva to Reb Moshe Levi Bronstein in Monsey. Okay. You ready? You with me? Let's go.
Yeah.
You cross Alidei Nechti Kibalti. V'ha'oisis Shaluni Alidei Nisyu v'dechal banasa Anisha Asiyas Gvina Mimenu Metziim product Anikrovei. So in the Nisyu v'dechal, in the byproduct, the milky byproduct, which is, well, I say milky, it's whey, which is a byproduct of the creation of cheese, which is called whey. V'chein v'kach ma'aseh. How is it produced? You put a ma'amid into the milk until it solidifies, it coagulates, and then the nisyuvi, the whey, floats on the top. Tzof milamala. Then you heat up the tarovas. Sometimes up until yad seledis boy, and this helps in the cheese making process so that more nisyuva the chalba comes out. Then you separate them totally, dry it into powder, and this powder is called whey. It's whey powder. Okay? Number 1. That's obvious. Number 2, we'll go to the next paragraph. Whether the whey is included in Gevinas Goy or not. Now, ricotta cheese. What is ricotta cheese? Anybody?
It's a soft cheese. It's like it's an Italian type.
It's an Italian. It is the word. Apparently, in Italian, the word, however they pronounce it, means recooked, because it is recooked. So he says here as follows. In the making, let's go through this. Let me just check I'm doing the right ice. Just a second. Yes. This is. Just give me a second, please. Shirayim. Mamid. Okay. Yeah. So let's see. This is the right base. Nistapik kvoid malosai. Im hagvino b'shas asiyosa. Dahainu b'meshach ha'akpo'o yesh lo kvadin gvinas goy. The shaila is, at the moment when you are coagulating it, does it already have the din of gvinas goy? V'hanegea l'sheila hanal b'asiyas havei, who im nizbashel hanisyuva im hagvino, because then if it has the din of gvinas akum at that stage when you are coagulating it, when you cook the nisyuvi with the gvino, then it's makabel the time of gvinas akum, and then v'nesto hanisyuvi mi machmas tam gvinas akum sheba. That's the shaila. V'kosav. So this is the Shoyel wrote to the Rav Wosner, and he says, "Dipligi b'zeh poskim, dibepri chodosh kosav lehatir harikota." Pri chodosh was matir ricotta. Dahainu acha she'oisin hagvina v'nishar hanisyuv b'dechalba. After you've made cheese and you have the whey, what they would do is they would recook it, ricotta. Mar tichin oisay ma'at ad shenikba v'u ke'en gvina v'nikra ricotta. V'zeh midina eino nichnesas b'gezeres gvinas akum. And so the Pri Chodosh held that nisyuva dechalba, that liquid, the whey, which they then recooked to make cheese, was not osur, and it was not included in gvinas akum. So the Radal asks the Darkei Tshuva, brings the Radal who asks on the Pri Chodesh, how could he be makel on the ricotta? Because it was after it had been separated alidei bishul. Harenis arev tam hagvina imo veleka shishim neged hagvina. How can it be mutter? Va'afilu l'shittas ha'pri chodesh to make mitam cholov. Even if you want to say there's no isser of cholov akum, mikol makim ligvina meichish chayish to have a davar shebeminyan. V'kach kosav shom b'shem tshuvas neta soyrek.
By the way, the Pri Chodesh was a matya cholov stam.
Potentially, yeah. We're going a bit backwards. The truth is, I'm going to work backwards to cholov at some point. Okay. But once we started with Ma'amid, I wanted to go through all the things relevant to Ma'amid. Maybe the Shoyel says to Rav Ozna, maybe what is this machlekes actually about? It's about the following. Pligi bezeh, im b'shas asiyas hagvinos, din gvina olav le'inyan hagzeira, oy she'en chales hagzeira shel gvinas akum rak bigmar asiyas hagvina. Yeshiva shalomdas. At what point do I say the Isser of Gvinas Akum kicks in? Is it only when it is already separated and I now have cheese? So now there's cheese, now there's Gvinas Akum, but not in the process thereof. Maybe that's the Machlekes.
Do you need Gemar Melacha to...
That's what this Shoyel is suggesting. Ulavovi loy kain yidmeh, says Rab Vosner to him. He's being a little bit polite, but he's basically saying, Drainish can cop. No. Da'ma'ayin b'lashon ha'pri chodesh v'chem shil tagi boirim, yira d'dinish shel ha'pri chodesh nivnal sofik yisoidi ma'oid b'din gzeres gevina. He says, no, that is not the correct analysis of the machlekes. Says Rav Vosner, I'll tell you what this machlekes is about, and this is the bit which is relevant for us here. He says, Rav Vosner, I'll tell you what it is. Diyesh lachkor. But this is the important bit.
Lost the line also.
Sorry, lost it. I just skipped a line. We are now 1, 2, 3, 4 lines down, middle of the line. Diyesh lachkor. Mahu gzeirosam. Got it?
Yeah.
4 lines down, middle of the line. Diyesh lachkor. Mahu gzeirosam. What was the gzeira? Im gozura gvino shedarkoi laha'amid ba'oir bekeva ukiyotze b'zamuski b'gmaravi d'zor daflamet heyamad alev. Maybe the gzeira of gvinas akum was only for cheese that the normal production method was to be ma'amided. Aval agvino ashniya, but the second gvino, dahainu achash nishar nisube de chalba. That which is left after you got the whey. Hanikra gam kein kumbalosh and chazal, mevashlin oisoi oid pa'am. You then cook it once again, ricotta, recooked. It's cooked again. Why do they do that? They do that to get rid of the residue of the fat of the cheese. Bevadai, and this they do below shum ma'amid. No ma'amid is needed. Says Rav Vosner, therefore that was never included in the gzeira. Kol hakfuim she'osim mecholov doimim. Mecholov doimim yoyse lechema b'mkemus legozru. All these things that coagulate, that you make out of milk, are comparable to butter, which we haven't spoken about. Butter b'mkemus legozru, in the places where there was no gzeira on butter. Oidilma, or maybe do you say, Kol nikra alav shem gevina, as long as it's called cheese, then even the second one, even though really nevertheless it's included in the gzeira and is also mishum gvinas akum, which is a long-winded way of saying our shaila, our chakira. What would be something that is called cheese but does not involve the ha'amoda of anything else? It's not created via ha'amoda. So he happens to be talking about a slightly different case. It's ricotta. But it's exactly the same as our soft cheese. The concept is exactly the same. And he says that's what the machlekes is about. When you have something which is called cheese, but it is not produced via ha'amoda, is that included in the gzeira of gvinas akum or not? That's the machlekes. Vehein heim divrei, next paragraph. Vehein divrei haradvaz b'tshuva binyan hayogurt shel goyim. The afal pikein, the Radvaz is of the opinion that yogurt is also kigvina. Dekach sheyesh bo ha'amoda. You know why? Because yogurt is achieved through a process of ha'amoda, like cheese. Afilu b'davar hamamid hamachmid shel heter gomor mikol mokim. Kivin sheyesh bo tzuras ha'amoda harei hu kigvina shel goyim. That's pshat in the Radvaz. V'ayin b'Birkei Yosef. You know who wrote the Birkei Yosef? The Chidah. V'ayin b'Birkei Yosef b'shurei bracha hevi divrei Radvaz b'kitzur. V'hayogurt b'tzurosoi hachitzoina rechoika Yosef mimahus hagvina. Let's face it, says Rav Vosner, yogurt looks much less like cheese from the externals, from the aesthetics of it. Me'asher ha-ricotta now, much more than ricotta. Ricotta looks like cheese. And that's why the Pri Chodesh holds the Afal Pi Shenikba, even though you coagulate it, Mikol Mokim Kinim Dahakpo Rak Al Yedei Bishul, because the way that you do it is Al Yedei Bishul, not Al Yedei Amamid. Lo Nichnas B'Gzar Gzeira, B'Geder Gzeira. It was not included. V'zeh Tzuarich, sour cream. Hamuzke b'tshuvas chasam soifer diodua shetzua. I don't know how to pronounce it properly. Maybe
sour cream, is it?
I think so. What? Zurich. Sour. B'yemeyem hu oisa hagvina. Here you go. The chasam soifer. This it was talking about b'yemeyem hu oisa hagvina she'osu oisa bli ma'amid klau. There you go. Clearly, no ma'amid. Rak al yedei bishul ipulis acheres keitzim b'zeh. U'shchiach she'oisa meis al yedei cholav shehuchmet zomei atzma. Umavarim mitoicha atzorich mitoicha nisyuba ulemiktas poskim hoya pshitas shu bechlal agzeira ukenir gam b'tshuvas chasam soifer. Now it sounds like the chasam soifer and others, the Radvaz, would hold that it is included in the gzeira. Ulaha Pri Chodesh poshut le'lehetera. The Pri Chodesh would clearly hold that it is mutter. Why? Because of the svara. What's the svara? The svara is that since this is not made through the process of ha'amoda, it was not included in the gezeira. V'ayin gam kem shut levushay modchem ashkasu b'zeh u'bebirkei Yosef not halacha zu de rikota le'isur shamachmirim soivrim de b'chol ha'nikveh ke'en gvina nichnas b'gzeiras gvina avu b'shein nas g'derech gvina Pri Chodesh b'ha atzmei mekel de harikota ke'itzu b'zeh einoi beged gzeira de gvinas akum. Omi Mele says that like kosher, what the Achronim ask on him from the Nisuba de Chalba, not a problem at all. It was never included in the Gzeira of Gevinas Akum. So to summarize, Rab Vosner holds that the Machloikas, Chasam Soifer, Radvaz with the Pri Chodesh is this Nekuda, the same Svara that we saw in Reb Moshe. Clearly, the Aruch HaShulchan, the Chochmas Adam, and Me'ika Hadin the Sridei Eish also would be Machmir, but we have, at least now, we've broadened it out a little bit, and we have the core Maramakomas. There aren't any more, to the best of my knowledge, in this sugya I've searched. This is the basis of we understand the lumdus now of the Machlokas. Tomorrow, Mietz Hashem, we will go through the OU document with Rav Belsky and Rav Shechter's Torah on it to understand, and I'll introduce you to the IMCU, International Milk Clotting Units, to understand exactly how they produce it. Shkayach.